Listen, Freyna, shh. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we found the one. As always, what we want to do is feature a comment on this video. If you want your comment to be featured in our next video, leave a comment on this video for your chance to be featured in our next video. Yo, welcome back, guys. How you guys doing? Hopefully you guys having a great day. Today we wanted to go over Ultimate Freyna. Now, this is a character I've been wanting to play for a while. I played her on beta. I liked her. When looking to invest into a Descendant, you really want to see if the character does one, decent AoE, so mobbing builds, decent AoEs. You want to see that they are decent with bossing, like void hard bosses, and are they fun? If you have all three together, they make a really good Descendant that you can invest in. Now, normal Freyna does most of the stuff that Ultimate Freyna does. There's not a huge difference in them, but there are a couple things that do stand her out differently, and we're going to be talking about that. So I want to go ahead and show you guys. I have 4 builds for you guys. All right, this is going to be a longer video. I have 4 builds for you guys. We're not gonna really go into a rework because I feel like everyone has been on top of that. I want to show you my 4 builds specifically, how I'm having fun with it. So if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you enjoy this video, please hit the thumbs up. Now let's get into it. Now this week is a perfect week to farm for Freyna specifically. Now when it comes to Freyna, you need Toxic. Now one of the things you want to make sure you have for her is a tech one. Her 1, her 3, her 4 are all tech. They changed it. It used to be her 4 used to be dimensional. Now it is tech as well. Now when it comes to the reactors, you have a good reactor farm this week. You have special rounds for tech. This is for those who are using Secret Garden. I think personally that's her best in slot weapon right now. You can use that for generally for everything if you wanted to. You just have to play it differently, change the mods around. But overall, if you have a Secret Garden maxed out, this would be amazing to farm out for some good reactors. And if you want to do some bossing specifically and try to get a little bit more damage and squeeze a couple more bullets with mental focus, you're going to be looking into getting an impact around reactor. So keep that in mind as well. This week is actually really good to be farming for Freyna, but if you happen to be watching this video after this video is dropped, just keep an eye out for these specifically. Those are going to be really good. If you're newer and you can't seem to get these weapons right away, even some general rounds, tech reactors are going to be really good as well. And just those specifically, these 2 rounds are really what pushes Freyna over the edge. Now with the rework, we're not going to go too crazy into it, but they did change it a little bit. It has a little bit more range, has more damage, and on top of that, it also has, each power has their own debuff. So the first skill 1 has Panic, followed by Despair, Decay, and Nightmare. They all have their own DOT. They all have their own debuff. So you have to keep that in mind. But the base range of these are all 7 meters when it comes to room 0 trauma. I feel like Freyna with no Transcendent mod is still really solid character. You can boost for range. You can boost for a little bit duration. Cooldown for sure. And you want to focus a little bit on damage just to get that, squeeze a little bit more damage on doing some AoEs. But now, if you want to take this build a little stronger, all right, now we add Contagion to the mix. Now, I wanted to max out as much as we can when it comes to this. Now, the only thing is, your normal debuff range was around 7 meters for room 0 trauma. But with Contagion, it actually lowers it a little bit. So they have it felt like a slight nerf. I don't remember what it was before, but I feel like they nerfed it just a little bit. And maybe tweak the damage to do a little bit more damage. But I feel like there's a little bit nerf. It is not as strong as the range on the normal ones. You start with 4 and you can max it out to 300%, which is 12 meters. Now, if you want to max it out with Contagion, 12 meters is your max. I do have a few things to keep in mind to tell you. One, even with maximized range and skill expansion, you don't even max it out. I have a gold reactor right now specifically for this build that is a gold range on there with skill costs, and with that I'm reaching 12 meters, so keep that in mind. It would be heavy investment. Now, is it crazy amount of difference if you took that off, or you're going from 12 meters to 9.6? So keep that in mind. You are missing about give or take 3 meters. So that's up to you guys if you want to. I personally would like that. I would like to max it out as much as I can. Like I said, with Contagion, this is going to be one of her best mobbing builds specifically. There's other ways to play her, but I feel like this is one of her best ways to do damage for mobbing. This is a basic Contagion build, nothing crazy when it comes to it. There are new mods that came out. There's a new Toxic mod out there. There's a new Tech mod out there. You can play around with it to give you a little bit more damage. You don't have to worry about losing some of that damage specifically by having the range here. You can potentially just use something like this to mitigate that actual damage loss that you have for range. You could play around with that however you guys want to. For me right now, I'm keeping it like this. Now this is her basic Contagion build. Like I said, you can play around with the mods however you feel. Like that's just something I've been liking so far. The damage wise seems to be good, but what I want to show you guys now is a build that's actually been keeping my attention, and that build is the Venom injection build. Now this build is very interesting. Now if you don't know what Venom injection does, it's one of her new mods. It is only specifically for Ultimate Freyna. Now what it does, it takes away your 2 and changes it up. Now Toxic Sense, what it does is it eats up your HP, and when you're done eating up the HP, it will start to eat up the MP. So what do you get in exchange for that? Well, you get what is called Toxic Sense. Toxic Sense gives you max skill power modifier by 66%. You get max toxic resistance by 250%. Max shield recovery per second 5%. Purification rate 30%. So what does all that means? Skill power modifier, so she's going to hit harder. She's going to have resistance against toxic, recovery shield, and purification. Freyna is built to work with the new void boss. I don't know why the First Descendant does this, but the last 2 void bosses we've gotten, they drop a descendant correlating to that specific element, which means that that element will take less. That means that what that means is that void boss will take less damage because they have higher resistance specifically towards that element. So with Glenny, you have Haley. With Deathstalker, you have Freyna. So it's going to be diminishing returns unless you fully spec out to doing some heavy damage. Now, what's good about this is this character specifically feels like it's built for that void boss. Even though that void boss has toxic resistance, what this character does with this specific mod is amazing. Now, if you don't already know about Deathstalker, Deathstalker will give you a debuff. It takes about half of your health, and you can have it 4 times. So you can go from 20,000 HP down to like 600 HP, which again, that would easily be able to kill you. But if you build specifically around shield, which is what this build is specifically for, then you can survive a lot better and not have to worry about the debuff that's being put on you specifically. Because like we mentioned, you have toxic resistance, so now you have a little bit of resistance against the Deathstalker. On top of that, you have max shield recovery. So if you're working on shields, you don't have to worry about the debuff that's being put on you because you're working on shields specifically. And on top of that, it gives you purification activation rate, which means purification will remove the debuff that is put on top of you. So you have a 30% chance of getting that taken off. On top of that, what she does to help mitigate the difference in damage because the boss has toxic resistance is it gives you 25% less toxic resistance. Now, the way I have it built out specifically is a little odd. I have to explain a little bit to a few people, but you're going to go with all the shield mods you can probably put on this character. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm looking at increased shield. So you're going for really high shield. Then you're going to be going into weighing the skills. Gives you more shield and gives you some skill costs, which is going to be really good because you're only going to have 1 HP with overwhelming shield, which means that you will be eating up your MP quite a bit. So having a little bit of skill cost just helps balance it out just a little bit. Not too much. It's not going to help you like it's going to break the game for you, but it does help that it does help in your favor specifically for skill cost. On top of that, you have overwhelming shield. Now, what overwhelming shield does, I believe they changed it because I don't remember it being this way. It brings your HP to 1, but increases your shield. Now, it increases your shield by 26.8% of your max health, which is why we're putting a little bit of health on here. So it looks contradictory to be able to, why you have HP if you're going to be at 1. This actually scales off of your HP. So having higher HP is going to be very helpful for your shields, because that would then be put into your shields instead. On top of everything else, we have your normal skill cooldown. I have a little bit of range. You don't need range specifically for if you're doing bossing build. If you're doing a bossing build, you can take this out and do a little bit more damage with a new toxic mod like we showed earlier. So we're looking at, you could put this on there to do a little bit more damage instead of skill expansion. Because like I said, you don't need to worry about, when it comes to void bossing, you don't need to worry about range. You can just specifically worry about damage. So you can take this off and put toxic incentive there. I also have more cooldown. So you have MP conversion, nimble cooldown. You have focus on toxic, so you can get a little bit of cooldown, but you have toxic skill power on there. On top of that, you have Venom Sanctum. This will give you a little bit more toxic power. There's no modifiers. Both of these are going to be toxic specifically power, so there's no modifiers on here. It's just straight damage you're building up for sure. I bring this build into dungeons. I bring this build into void bosses. I just take this out and put a little bit more damage on her specifically. But specifically, I use this build for the new boss, Deathstalker. Now, I did try her out, and averagely, give or take, you're in a ballpark of anywhere between 30 to 40 million damage on that boss, which is pretty average to what I'm seeing everyone else. When I'm looking around, or I'm asking in the chat, hey, what is your damage at? Just want to know, because I'm trying to compare my damage to yours. I'm seeing give or take around the same, anywhere in the ballpark of 30 to 50 million. So the fact that I'm in that ballpark of 30 to 40 million, and this is a toxic character that is not supposed to do as much damage, how she's able to balance the scales just a little bit to do a little bit of damage. But like I said, it completely takes away having to worry about the debuff that is being put on you when you're playing Deathstalker specifically. Now, when it comes to the reactors and your external components, specifically for the Void Injection build, I'm playing around with a few things. I am playing around with a double bravery set, which gives you HP recovery and max shield. Now, the HP recovery doesn't matter, it's 1.8%, but what we matter the most is that 11.9% to max shield, so it gives you a little bit more shield on top of that. Now, if you want to go all 4%, all 4 sets is up to you, but that 6.6 doesn't make a huge difference specifically. In duration, you're looking at a very small margin difference when it comes to that. I'd rather go with a 2-piece bravery set. I am doing a Slayer set, a 2-piece Slayer set. This gives me a little bit more general rounds. This is specifically for bossing. If you're going to do it, you get a little bit more rounds when you're using your 4, be able to do a little bit more damage. But if you want to, what will help out instead, if you guys have the Annihilator set to give you a little bit more duration on top of that instead, that would be also helpful depending on how you're playing your character. This is just what I would use specifically if I was to do some bossing. You can go ahead and swap it out and get some Annihilator sets in here, and then you'd be perfectly fine. Now, when it comes to reactors, you can do however you want. Now, let me show you what the reactor I'm using right now. I am using a skill cost and skill range specifically. If I'm doing dungeons, this is going to be what I'm using, so I don't have to worry about it eating up a lot of my MP. On top of that, has range on top of that. There are other reactors that I also use as well if I'm going to go bossing specifically. Right now, for me specifically, I've been finding better luck with this specific reactor than a Colossus one for me. I have yet to get a Colossus that gives me a really good sub stat with it. I find more damage I've been able to put with this, which is tech, and on top of that, sub attack power. So this is when I'm going bossing specifically, I'm putting this reactor on here. So for Deathstalker, Void bosses, all those, I'm putting this reactor because it gives me a little bit more damage. Again, we don't care about the range as much. Skill costs, it would be great to have it, but we can only have 2, and I'd rather have damage dealing perks when it comes to Void bosses. So I'm putting this on there right now. You can farm, again, these reactors. I want to be farming for a Colossus one because I'm looking for a good Colossus as a secondary. Maybe Colossus in tech, or Colossus in sub power, something with a damage perk. I don't know about crit rate as much, but we'll see. I'm looking more specifically for Colossus and something I can actually use specifically after that. But I will be farming this week for it. But this is what I've been using to get a little bit more damage. All right, now I wanted to play with her other mods as well. Now, again, when I play with normal Freyna, I've tried only Contagion because Contagion was the best in slot mod. You just do AoE, and she was just known to be an AoE character. But what I've wanted to play around is her other mods to see what mods are going to be good and can you build, and it would be fun and enjoyable and at least be decent overall. Now, there's some Descendants that have mods that are not great at all, and I'm not going to speak on those Descendant mods specifically, but there's some mods that I think they need to be reworked. But for Freyna, I feel like a majority of her mods are pretty solid. Even this mod here, Toxic Simulation, this mod you can use on normal Freyna as well. What it does is it takes your defense mechanism and you're able to spread it to your teammates as well. And then they will, if they in turn get damaged, they will get room 0 trauma to the enemy that is attacking them. This has a debuff called Despair, as we talked about. You're going to get a debuff with this. And the fact that you're able to give this to your teammates allows them to take a little bit less damage. And with this, you're probably going to be looking at more of a cooldown plus a duration build specifically. And like the way I have it right now is I am working on a lot of cooldown here specifically. As you see the mods, I'm looking at bringing her cooldown from 20 seconds down to 5 seconds, but her duration is 24.9 seconds. You, again, depending on how you want your build, you can change your annihilation set over to help out a little bit more. If you have a reactor for duration, that would help as well. But right now, this is what I'm using. It is fun. It's good to use it even in dungeon builds. It's not going to be as fun as your other builds, but this still allows you to use your other debuffs and have that 7-meter range, unlike Contagion that takes away, which makes it 4 meters bare. Now you have 7 bare minimum. So that's really nice to be able to utilize the other ones and doesn't change anything else. Even her one that it does change keeps it at 7. So I think this mod is overall pretty solid as a mod. Can you use this for bossing? Sure. Takes a little bit less damage, but the only thing I would say is it doesn't show you guys a actual cutoff on the range of Plague Body. So you might be able to scale this as super high. I don't know how high you can actually get it. I have yet to really try myself, but 21 meters is what I have it right now. You could probably scale it even higher. There doesn't seem to be a cutoff. There might be a specific cutoff for it. Room 0 trauma is the actual debuff that's being put onto the enemy, but the Plague Body armor to be able to hit your teammates doesn't seem to have an actual cutoff or range. So if you wanted to do a void boss with this, it could be helpful. Like I said, this is going to be good to take 30% less damage. It could be great for if you're doing something like that with your void build. I think overall this is still a solid mod. It's not one of her best mods, but it's definitely a really solid mod specifically for her. And I just happened to play it, like it, wanted to make a build around it, and this is how I have my current build specifically for Toxic Simulation. Now let's go on to the next one. Now the next one is Toxic Mixture. Now I've heard a few people talk about this mod. They weren't too crazy about it. This mod changes Freyna's kit altogether. So you no longer have room 0 trauma effect, but you actually, instead of room 0, you actually get necrosis. Now this is an ultimate Freyna mod, as you see, but what you do instead is you get firearm attack damage will be increased. As you see, it changes her whole entire kit. You get necrosis instead. Necrosis, what that does is it has a duration of 5 seconds bare minimum. You can stack it to 100, and every stack gives you 0.9%, so almost 1%. So you can almost get over 90% easily. When it comes to necrosis, what do you get in turn for that? When it's fully maxed out, you get 11% crit rate, and on top of that, critical hit resistance reduction 15%. So what does that mean? So what that means is your weapon would have 11% crit rate, which makes it a lot stronger. So if you have a weapon that isn't as great with crit rate, this can help it a little bit more. If your weapon is amazing with crit rate, you just keep boosting it up more. So this is like really good for, like I said, if you're going to be using for Secret Garden, if you're going to be using it for Enduring Legacy, any really hard-hitting weapons is going to be really good for it. You're going to hit a lot harder because you have that higher crit rate. But on top of that, you also have firearm critical hit resistance reduction 15%, which means that you will take away their chance of not getting a crit hit and becoming a crit hit because you have reduced their critical hit resistance. So now it's more of a chance to actually hit them with a critical hit on top of that. But like I said, you have to have max stats. This is what I've been using for my bossing build, and I've been having a lot of great success with this. So what you're focusing on is trying to get necrosis out and being able to get that stack all the way to max as possible. Every hit with your 4 will give you a necrosis stack. So the whole point is when you're doing a void boss is to stack this up as much as possible with your 1, 2, and 3 as much as possible, and then go in for the kill with your 4 to be able to get that. You have that additional buff on top of it. So the way I have mine specifically built out, I'm doing some cooldown. I'm doing a little bit of cooldown. I'm having a lot more duration on there. Then you have your damage mods, like you have focus on tech, you have focus on toxic, you got your cooldown on top of with nimble fingers. Then you're going to do spear and shield with its skill power. You're also doing the new mod toxic incentive with Venom Sanctum. More damage on top of that. On top of that, you're going to be using dangerous ambush. This is going to give you 25% more damage. On top of that, when they're down, you're going to be able to do more damage on top of it. So you're really trying to push as much damage as possible. Now, specifically, I've been having better success with the Slayer set. Now, there are the new set specifically from Deathstalker. Now, depending on how you build with Toxic Injection, I think this set would be amazing. You get a little bit more skill power, but on top of that, it helps you recover your shield as well. So I think with the new set specifically for Deathstalker helps you. You can try to do, if you're looking for a bossing build specifically, not Deathstalker, you can try to do a 2-piece toxic set. You can also do a 2-piece duration annihilation set, depending on how you want to do your build. But it all depends. But for me personally, I've been having more success with the 4-piece Slayer set. Right now, I'm still trying to farm the new Deathstalker boss to get a few more components specifically. I'm having a really tough time with the memory for some reason. I'm having a really tough time get that. I've deleted a bunch of these processors, but I can't seem to get a memory to drop at all, or at least a memory that I will enjoy with the good perks. So that's something to keep in mind. Depending on your build, it will depend on the components you're going to be using. But if you're using for bossing, me personally, I've been using the Slayer set, but I will probably, if I get a good set of the toxic and the duration, that would be really good as well for bossing, because you can keep your necrosis up, you can do a little bit more damage. But the Slayer set just overall is so much better, because then you get the skill cost, you get the skill power, and then you get more bullets. So that means more time with your skill 4. So this to me still seems to like is the best set for her. But again, depending on your build, like I said, the Venom injection build, you're gonna probably be looking at the new set for Deathstalker, and then you'll be able to do a little bit more toxic damage. On top of that, have a chance to recover your shield. So the Venom injection build is going to be really good, specifically with this component set. I have yet to get a 4-piece that I actually like, but overall it's going to be probably her best component set if you're doing a Venom injection build specifically. But that is pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about this build. How are you guys using Freyna? Is Freyna fun for you? Did you guys end up swiping for her? Did you guys end up grinding her out and finally able to get it? It has been pretty much almost 1 week since Freyna came out. I'm curious to see what you guys think about Freyna. She is now so much fun. She has a lot of Transcendent mods that are useful. Now, the only mod I didn't get to review for you guys is her other mod, the one with the footsteps. Now, unfortunately, I accidentally deleted the mod. Now, I asked a few people on stream, how is this mod specifically? And they told me what the mod does. And you lose your skill 3, but what you gain instead is movement speed, which I think that extra 30% in dungeons, I think is really fun. 30% more movement speed is what Isimo has when it comes to his ultimate being used. If you have yet to see my Isimo build, definitely check that out. He is really fun when he has movement speed at 30%. That is really fun when you activate your 4. If you can get an extra 30% movement speed, that puts you up there with as fast as Bunny out there, which is really nice. If you're really just going to dungeons, you just want to speed run it, I think this mod is a really good mod for that specifically. But outside of that, it's not going to be a really great mod. I think it's still a good mod to try out. I accidentally deleted it, unfortunately. I must have combined it to get something else. But it would be something that I will try to get and make another build specifically. Her layout, right now, like as you guys saw, we have 4 layouts specifically. I might be able to get another one and try that one out specifically. I think she has a lot of Transcendent mods that are really solid, and she's probably one of the most invested characters I put on her. I put 12 catalysts inside her, so she's really built up, so I'm able to adjust her build however I want. Again, if this is a character you really want to invest in, then go ahead and invest. If she brings fun to you, that's all that matters. You know, when it comes to a game like this, if you have fun with a character, just invest in it. I know the whole point is if you want to maximize it, you want to make sure you put it on a character that is fairly new, because you know that the ultimate version is not going to come out soon. But on top of that, the difference between ultimates and normals isn't too crazy much difference. So it's up to you guys if you really want to. I wouldn't put it in normal Freyna if you're just starting off. Maybe I can consider putting a couple in normal Freyna, but overall, when you're done with the story, you really want to grind for ultimate Freyna, because she is so much fun with her other Transcendent mods as well. But that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think of this video. Let me know how you guys are playing her. Comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.